All right, this is the 6.0 study guide. We are graphing linear equations and linear inequalities. So number 1 says graph using a function table, y equals 3x minus 5. And if you'll notice, there's a function table right there, and it even says this is a function table. So the equation is written into the function table. And there's another hint over here that says pick 3 values for x, like -2, 0, and 2, and then find y. Oh, okay, well, let's just use those values. I said they could be anything of your choice, so they gave us these 3. Let's just use them. Usually I like to pick a -1, a +1, and 0, and I usually don't make them too big because I want them to be sure and fit on my graph. So we're going to write y equals 3 times -2 minus 5, y equals -6 minus 5. If I put all these negatives together, I have 11 negatives. So that is the point -2 comma -11. And then we're going to make x 0, my personal favorite. If x is 0, can't we just cover up this? Because 3 times 0 is 0, isn't it? So if I cover that up, then y is equal to -5. And then the last one, if x is 2, y equals 3 times 2 minus 5. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 5 is 1. So it's the point 2 comma 1. Now we're going to graph those 3 points. Now you have a graph here. I'm going to use graph paper because for the video I think it's easier to see. So the first point is -2, -11. So I'm going to go -2, and then I'm going to go -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, -11. That point's way down here, -2, -11. And then I'm going to graph the point 0, -5, and 2, 1. 0, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2, 1. And if you'll notice, those 3 points are in a pretty nice straight line, aren't they? So we graph those using a function table and 3 random x values. And that worked just great. So let's look at number 2. Oh, and notice this was in slope-intercept form, but we were still able to graph it using a function table. So now we're going to go to number 2. Number 2 is in standard form, but we can still graph it using a function table and our 3 random values for x. So we're going to use those same values, -2. So this would be 2 times -2 plus y equals 1. 2 times -2 is -4 plus y equals 1. If I want to know what y is, I have to get rid of my -4 by adding 4 on both sides. So y equals 5. So when x is -2, y is 5. Now I'm going to make x 0. So 2 times 0, isn't that just 0? So isn't y equal to 1? When x is 0, y is 1. That's easy. And then we're going to make x +2. So then our equation would be 2 times 2 plus y equals 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus y equals 1. I need to get y alone, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. And y is going to equal 1 positive and 4 negatives is 3 negatives. So when x is 2, y is negative 3. So I have these 3 points. I have negative 2, 5, negative 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 0, 1, and 2, negative 3. 0, 1, and 2, negative 1, 2, 3. Looks to me like that's another straight line. I'm going to freehand it. Oh, that was terrible, Leffler. But you can see that it is a straight line. So, first two we graphed using a function table, 3 random values for x. The first equation was in slope-intercept form. The second equation was in standard form, but the function table with 3 random values for x still works. Perfect. Now, let's look at the next one. It says graph using x and y intercepts. And please notice that this is an inequality. Okay? So we're going to find the x and y intercepts. So I'm going to write the inequality here. And I'm going to find the x and y intercepts. Now when it's an inequality, the only time that matters is when you're determining if your line is broken or solid, and when you're determining if it's going to be shaded above or below the line. So if we make x 0 to find our y-intercept, then that's going to be 4 times 0, which is just 0. So we're left with 2y is greater than 12. But since we're just finding the point, I'm just going to call it equals 12 for now. Divide by 2. Y equals 6. When x is 0, y is 6. That's our y-intercept. I'm going to go ahead and graph that. X is 0, y is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And since it's a point, we don't have to worry about the inequality part of it till we actually do the broken or solid line and the above the line or below the line. Now, if y is 0, then let's figure out what x is. So if y is 0, we're going to put 4x. Now, if y is 0, that means 2y is 0. So 4x plus 0 is just 4x equals 12. Not going to worry about the inequality just yet. Divide both sides by 4. X equals 3. So that's the point 3, 0. So that's the point 1, 2, 3, 0. Now, since this symbol looks like this, I'm going to show you something that you should know. I'm going to show it to you anyway. If your inequality symbol looks like this or like this, your line is going to be broken. Sometimes we call it broken or dotted. If your inequality symbol looks like this or like this line right here tells you that your line is going to be solid. Okay? So if we look at this inequality symbol, there's no equal sign, so we know it's going to be a broken line. So here's our 2 points, and we're going to do a broken line. Now, here's what else I know. This is in standard form, and if I want to determine if I shade greater than is above the line or less than is below the line, it has to be in slope-intercept form. So I found the x and y intercepts. Now I'm going to put it in slope-intercept form. 4x plus 2y is greater than 12. And in order to get it into slope-intercept form, it needs to start looking like this. Except that, of course, it's going to be an inequality. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my fish hooks, and I'm going to remember my random rule. I want to get y alone. There's my y. I have to get rid of 4x. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. My positive 4x's and my negative 4x's partner up. They're out of here. I have 2 y's left, and on my right hand side I have negative 4x and positive 12 that are not like terms, so they can't combine, so I'm going to bring them down separately. Now I want to get y alone, so I'm going to divide every stinking term by 2. Did I multiply or divide by a negative number? I did not, so I don't have to do the random rule. So I have y is greater than negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. That's my slope, that's my m. Then here's my x, and then here's my positive 6. So I took this inequality and I put it in slope-intercept form. Now I can use greater than is above the line and less than is below the line for my shading. I know my line is broken because it doesn't have an equal sign, and since this is greater than, I'm going to shade it above the line. So it's broken, and I'm going to shade it above the line. And there's my graph. That's the graph of this inequality. And let's just double check this. It says y is greater than negative 2x plus 6. So if I begin graphing it at 6 on the y-axis and my movement is negative 2 over 1, 6 on the y-axis is right here, negative 2 over 1, there's a point, negative 2 over 1, there's a point, negative 2 over 1, there's a point. It's the same graph, isn't it? I feel very confident that that is done correctly.